Jojolion is a story about breaking a curse. It says as much in the first chapter, but I think if we read a little deeper, we can find something more to explore, something that could even be applicable to your own life. So I hope you can enjoy this new type of video I'm trying where I'll guide you through my own interpretation of Jojolion, to see that it's also a story about the dangers of giving up on your humanity. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, we need to talk about the guys who did give up, who also serve as the primary antagonists of the series, the Rock Humans. It's stated in narration, almost in a documentary style, that rock humans are mostly sociopathic creatures. They don't believe in things like families or groups, and that about 97.5% of their relationships end in murder. However, throughout the story we can see that this isn't necessarily true, or at least many of the ones we experience in the story are statistical outliers. For example, the Aphex twins are obviously, twins, and they travel together. I don't know, guys, that seems pretty familial to me. I don't know. But for the sake of keeping this video short, I'm only going to cover the three that I think are the most relevant to the point I'm trying to make. So let's discuss Aisho, Dolomite, and Dr. Wu. We can see Aisho being contradictory from the description of rock humans in his flashback. He actually really loves his girlfriend, a very human trait. He loved her enough to confide his deepest, darkest secret to her, and tells her about his rock human biology. Now, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't tell somebody about secret, potentially detrimental information about myself unless I really planned on spending my life with them. And how did she repay him? By cheating on him. Right on top of him, mind you, and then she just had to go and sell his awesome house too, all while he was in hibernation. This fundamentally changed him as a person. As we can see in the present, he's extremely paranoid from that point on, and is unable to trust the world around him. He even gets nervous when some birds look at him the wrong way. During the parts of the story that take place during the present, we essentially never see him smile. He's a stressed out mess, compared to the past where we can see him having a nice time with his girlfriend. To put it in simple terms, Aisho gave up on love, the thing that made him human. And what path does this lead him down? The path of trying to eliminate those who discover his secrets, similar to the secrets he would once share with those he loved, leading him, of course, to getting disintegrated by a bus. An unfortunate fate, indeed. Dolomite is a similar case. He even gets his own girlfriend flashback too. Dolomite, much like Aisho, conflicts with the narration about the rock humans. He actually risks his own safety to save his girlfriend from being electrocuted. You know, when 97.5% of these guys are supposed to murder their girlfriends. However, this does have repercussions, those being the loss of all of his limbs and looking like an overcooked zombie man. What's his response to this? Living in a swamp forever, where his only joy in life is the prospect of Chobin bringing him KFC. By this point in the story, Dolomite has essentially given up on society. The man who once risked his own life to save others now has no problem using his stand to decimate innocent bystanders. I mean, come on, do you think the lady who had a shovel shoved down her throat is really gonna recover from that? Come on, let's be real with ourselves here. Now, where has giving up on society led him? Well, obviously being a little lonely swamp man with no connections. I mean, at least Aisho still had homies. He also gets hit in the head with a shovel. Not ideal. Dr. Wu, on the other hand, doesn't have a flashback, and we can easily discover what he's given up on just by reading what he says. Dr. Wu has given up on the ability to grow. According to the man himself, he never fails. He always performs perfect operations. He even prides himself on it. This is obviously not true, however. It's very blatant in the story that all he does is fix one problem that ends up creating another. Sure, he fixed Mitsuba's ear, but that of course resulted in her child being aborted. This is very far removed from the traditional definition of success. I mean, think about it. If he had done his job right in the first place and fixed Mitsuba correctly the first time, she wouldn't have had to keep coming back again and again, meaning he wouldn't have had to have fought Yahuso and Mitsuba at the same time. She wouldn't have even been there, which of course led to his death. Even beyond his medical practice, he and Toru literally failed to get the new Rakakaka branch when they went to the orchard to very specifically get that item. I would say the ability to learn from your mistakes is a very human trait. Every baby fails to walk a few times before they get it right, after all. Even on this very YouTube channel, I've had to take feedback on several occasions on how to improve my YouTube videos. Dr. Wu, however, in his narcissism, completely shut himself off from this possibility. But this actually does make sense. Rock humans, after all, are essentially born and enter society in a state of physical maturity. Dr. Wu never had to learn how to walk. Despite all this though, he still has the human trait of failure as shown in the previous examples, and even other rock humans have shown the ability to grow from their mistakes. Dr. Wu just refuses to act on his failures, even though he's a really smart guy. I mean, come on, he's a doctor on a research team that's advancing the world of medicine. He could totally grow and change if he put his mind to it, but he's just given up on it if the possibility even existed in his mind in the first place. He already thinks he's perfect, something any person can never truly be. So what's the takeaway from all this? Why am I trying to analyze the aspects of themselves that these rock humans gave up on, or perhaps never embraced in the first place? To explain this, I think we have to get into what rock humans are supposed to represent. Obviously, they're humans made of stone, but I mean in a thematic sense. Now, I'm trusting you all to have the intellect to process what I'm about to say here. There better not be any comments saying, the blue curtain is just supposed to be blue. Anyway, I believe the rock humans, at least partially, are supposed to serve as a symbol of people who have already given up. Losers. I mean, let's just look at their namesake song, the name of the stand that introduced the rock humans as a concept. I Am a Rock. A song about a person who's loved before, saying their feelings like that have died, and now they're a rock, an island, to shield themselves from the pain that comes from these feelings. Somebody who's given up on the feelings that make them human. And you can see this reflected in some aspects of modern day life. There are things like shut-ins, you know, those guys that you see in Japanese cartoons before they get whisked off to low-quality writing harem fantasyland. There are also those dudes that post about the quote-unquote male loneliness epidemic online. Now, I don't believe that that's a real thing, just something some people are clinging to as an excuse for why they can't get a date, but the point is that these guys are talking like they've already given up on life. You know the types, I'm sure, like, ooh, I'll never get any friends, ooh, I'm so lonely, ooh. And yeah, it can feel hopeless. I felt like this once too, nearly 10 years ago, when I was like 14 or 15 and going through awkward high school stuff. You know, like teenagers tend to do. Here's the thing though, it's possible to overcome the calamity, and nobody shows that better than our protagonist, Josuke Higashikata. The interesting thing about Josuke is that he's essentially a rock human himself. I don't mean that he's literally made of stone, he just has a very similar origin. I mean, just think about it. He enters life in society with an adult body without going through childhood, he has an understanding of math and science. Despite all this, he has no real memories of his own. Joshu definitely thinks he's a parasite feeding off of his family, just like the rock humans are said to be, and most importantly, he's buck naked. And, just like Aisho and Dolomite, he had every reason to be a miserable jerk. His mother let him drown, his other mother has rock dementia, the mob is after him for something he didn't even do, and the first thing that happens to him after being born is being framed for, well, I don't think I can say the words on YouTube, but just look at the images, you get the picture. He could have given up just like the rock humans from our previous examples, and just been the worst guy ever. I mean, it'd be understandable, really. But he chooses not to let these things overcome him. He thinks one of his mothers let him drown? It doesn't matter. He chose to love Yusuho instead. He's a freak of nature that doesn't really fit into society? It doesn't matter. He found and protected his own family. He's faced with the literal embodiment of all of the misfortune in the entire world that he can't possibly succeed against. Well, he'll just have to go beyond. I want to take a second to talk about the Wonder of You, my favorite stand in the entire series and previously stated to be the embodiment of misfortune. The more you try to fight him, the more misfortune occurs. One might assume that Josuke could have just gone home at any time and not dealt with any of this. The key point, though, that I really want all of you watching to understand is that retreating and giving up against the Wonder of You won't save you. Even when the physical stand isn't present, he is everywhere, because everyone suffers from misfortune. Just look at our previous examples. Aisho gave up on love, became ultra paranoid, and he still got hit by a bus. The man who tried to avoid direct conflict by hiding inside of other people's bodies still got turned into a puddle. Then, of course, there's our local slave to KFC. Everyone, even the man who walks the most righteous path, will still suffer from calamity, even if they try to avoid it. So, if you're going to suffer anyways, instead of giving up, instead of shutting yourself off from others, why not face it head on? Because then at least you have the chance to overcome the calamity. Of course, it's hard to do alone, but Josuke didn't make the same mistake the rock humans made. He actually completely misses his shot that otherwise would have been his last chance to defeat the Wonder of You. But he didn't give up on love, so, through his connection with Yusuho, he was finally able to repel the endless calamity. And where do we find our protagonist and antagonist, both of which were born under similar circumstances at the end of their adventures? One, surrounded by his new family, embracing him and letting him choose what cake he wants to get. And then of course there's Teru, or the Wonder of You, who has nothing worth remembering at the end of his life besides a hornet. sad, and alone. The final thing I want to address in this video is the inaccurate narration, which we discussed in the beginning. And this might be the most out there interpretation in the entire video, but I'd appreciate it if you stuck around for these last few minutes. Jojolion has some elements of incorrect labeling throughout the story, made most obvious with our protagonist, Josuke. Some people think he's Josafume, some people think he's Kira, but ultimately, in the final chapter, he defines himself. He is Josuke, the man who came from the soil. So maybe we're supposed to apply the same logic to other aspects of the story. Maybe the statistics we were shown aren't entirely true. After all, they were made by the narrator, an outside observer. A narrator doesn't define you, though. You define you. Maybe some of the rock humans we see throughout the story could have led better lives had they chosen to not give up. Maybe they didn't have to be losers. If you are one of the people I described earlier in the video, you know, people like shut-ins and you think you're a loser, you're only like that because you think you are one. So if somebody betrays you, or you make a mistake, or Apple steals your idea for the wireless charger, go outside, talk to new people, start on that creative project you always wanted to make, try a new hobby, but most importantly, don't give up on what makes you human. Don't be a rock. And those are my thoughts on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Part 8, Jojolion. This is a new type of video for me. You know, usually I criticize stuff like, ooh, engage, presentation cringe, or I say things I like, ooh, what if? Actually, no, I did make an interpretation before. I interpreted Lysithia's character before. I'm just now realizing how stupid this sounds. But if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing, as it helps out the channel. Also, please consider wishlisting my upcoming indie strategy game on Steam. It's gonna be great, I promise, link below. But most importantly, remember to have a nice day. Bye-bye. And putting this right at the end because I almost forgot again, thank you to my patron, Ginger. Won't happen again, I promise. Okay, bye for real this time, bye.